I'm Dr. Emma Milne. On the 12th of June 2023, a woman was imprisoned for 28 months for procuring her own miscarriage. A lot of people were very shocked by this case, partly I think because people often don't realise that abortion is still illegal in this country. You can have a legal abortion, but if you don't do it within the parameters of the law, which is to have two doctors agree you can have an abortion, then you are breaking the law under Section 58 of the Offences Against the Person Act 1861. I've recorded a couple of videos about that, which I'll link at the bottom of this one. I think the other reason why people were quite shocked about this case is because they can't understand why a woman who was 32 to 34 weeks pregnant would take steps to end the pregnancy at that point. Why, for example, didn't she take steps sooner and have a legal abortion? In order to answer that question, we really need to understand the nature of these cases. So there's not a huge amount of detail in the sentencing remarks about this woman, although there is enough information to make it quite clear that she was incredibly vulnerable and she had incredibly difficult circumstances, which no doubt impacted her decisions around her pregnancy. Other cases that I've looked at in my research have similar factors. So I talk about these cases as being crisis pregnancies. It's a situation for that woman where becoming pregnant causes her a crisis or perhaps exacerbates an already existing crisis. So we're talking about women who are living in violent and abusive situations, so either with partners or with family members, and they're terrified of that person finding out, or possibly those people who are putting pressure on that woman to end the pregnancy. They might not discover they're pregnant until quite late on. So that was certainly the case in one of the previous cases of a woman who's been imprisoned for procuring a miscarriage. She was already past the 24-week limit that's put on abortion through the law, which meant that obtaining a legal abortion was effectively impossible, but that didn't mean the crisis went away because she couldn't access a legal abortion. The law doesn't stop women from being in crisis when they experience pregnancies in these sorts of situations. It just makes it incredibly difficult for them to find a way to deal with it. Another point that's been raised and I've heard people talking about is, well, why didn't she just wait and put the baby up for adoption? Now, again, I understand that position, and that would obviously have been a far better outcome for this woman, for the baby that she was carrying, and also for her existing children who she's now separated from while she's been imprisoned. However, for that to happen, the woman needs to be in a position where she can acknowledge that she's pregnant, she can take active steps in order to do things to continue the pregnancy and then ensure an adoption can take place. Often women in this situation are not able to accept their pregnancy. They often have a transient understanding of whether or not they're pregnant. So they can realise that sometimes, and potentially that's when you'd see Googling of, how do I end a pregnancy? What happens if I do this to the unborn baby? They might Google those things when they have moments of lucidity, of understanding and knowing they're pregnant. But then they'll have large periods where they'll effectively put the pregnancy out of their mind. They'll deny it to themselves. They'll act like it's not there. This is effectively a problem that they need to go away. Now, obviously, we don't want women to experience pregnancy like this. We don't want the outcome that it has for that woman, but also for the unborn baby. That's not a situation any of us want a woman to be in. But the notion that imprisoning this woman or imprisoning any woman is going to teach that woman anything. She didn't do this intentionally. She's done this because she was in an incredibly difficult situation. And B, it's not going to teach other women to not do this. Women don't get pregnant because they really want to have late-term abortions. They get pregnant, the pregnancy causes them a crisis, and then they don't know what to do, and so in desperation, they obtain a late-term abortion. So obviously not everyone's going to agree with me. This is my take on it on the basis of all the research that I've done. But I think one of the things that we need to look at and we need to really think about is, what is the role of this piece of criminal legislation? Is it still serving a purpose? I would argue it's not, but this is something I'm going to look at in more detail in a future video.